All right, so I'm opening right. I have a picture of a horse. So just quick show of hands if this means something to you. If you've heard the story of Clever Hans before. Very few of you. Okay, so that's great. Let me tell you a little bit about Clever Hans. So Hans is the horse, right? Particular type of horse that I don't remember, right? But Hans is this horse, and his owner here, or master, is Wilhelm von Osten. They lived in Germany, and in 1904 in Berlin, after 4 years of extensive training, Wilhelm von Osten started showing off his horse, basically, so Hans, and the amazing things that Hans could do. All right, so let me give you a little list here, because Hans was actually, I knew Hans could do math, could do arithmetic, so he would stomp out answers with his hooves, basically. So he would ask questions like, what's 8 plus 4? And Hans would sit there and stomp his hoof 12 times to answer the question. All right, so we did tricks like this type of arithmetic type stuff. All right, so we could count the number of persons in the audience, perform arithmetic operations, as I just mentioned, read a clock, recognize and identify playing cards. He knew the calendar of the whole year. He would, if you put up a board in front of him, which I think is kind of shown here, so a board with the alphabet, so A, 1 equals A, right, 2 equals B, C, 3 equals C, etc. So we could actually tap out words, so he wasn't limited to just numerical types of responses. Right, so they could ask him things like what was they show him a painting and ask him to name the painter. All right, so we either giving a series of options and he'd choose the correct one, or he'd spell out the name. All right, so basically this horse could do a bunch of crazy, amazing things. And so this became, as you might imagine, this huge phenomenon in Berlin, and I'm sure they traveled far outside of Berlin as well. In the early 1900s, so again, about 1904. All right, now what's the most obvious explanation for what might be going on here? That it's a hoax, right? That it's he's trained this horse, but there's some hoax going on here with this guy, and he's just trying to dupe everyone, right, to make an easy buck or whatever, or make himself famous. All right, so the most obvious explanation, of course, is that this is some sort of elaborate hoax being put on by von Osten here. And in 1904, the German education board pulled out some money to investigate what was going on here, to see, okay, well, is this a hoax? And after an extensive study, so for a year and a half of sort of testing what's going on here, they determined that there was no hoax. So that von Osten was not, he truly believed, the horse was just a super intelligent creature who was capable of answering all these amazing questions. All right, so Hans would also be able to correctly answer questions if, people in the audience who were there came up and asked him a question that they wanted him to answer. So it wasn't just him, memorizing a bunch of stuff that von Osten had taught him to do, because he also responded to questions that were delivered from people that were not just his master. All right, or even when his master wasn't around and they brought sort of skeptics in to try to trick him, and they would ask the horse something, the horse would still correctly answer the questions. All right, so there's no hoax here, there's no sort of malintent on behalf of his owner. And finally, in 1907, Oscar Funkst, PF, really weird last name, Oscar Funkst, who was a biologist maybe, and a psychologist, him and somebody else whose name is escaping me at the moment, they finally sort of figured out what was going on here. Right, so they finally had an explanation for how Clever Hans sort of got to be so clever, or why he appeared to be so clever. And it turns out, because what they did basically was that Clever Hans could not correctly answer a question if the person who was asking the question did not know the answer to the question. All right, so if I show him a painting and I ask him who's the painter who painted this painting, and I have absolutely no idea, the horse also had absolutely no idea. All right? Or if I did know the answer, but they placed a screen in front of the person asking the question so that the horse couldn't see the person who was asking the question, again, whether it was Ron Austin or somebody else, the horse, again, wouldn't be able to correctly answer the question. All right? So it turns out that clever Hans, in fact, was incredibly clever, and he still deserves a whole lot of credit. What he was really, really clever at was reading people. All right? Because what they discovered that he was doing in order to answer these questions was picking up on super tiny cues, right? Little like micro expressions, right? The tiniest little things, right? From the person who was asking the question, who knew the right answer. And somehow this horse was able to pick up on this information and deliver, what he knew the person wanted, the answer that he knew his master, whoever, was looking for. All right, so again, when the person didn't know the answer, they couldn't give, any cues away, or any clues away, because they didn't know what the real answer was, right? So clever Hans was incredibly intelligent at reading people. And it turns out there's a lot of sort of lessons that can be taken from this. One lesson that apparently, so I don't work with animals, I'm a social psychologist, I haven't worked with animals since my undergrad days, but one of the lessons from this is that you shouldn't do any sort of animal experimentation when you're face-to-face with the animal. All right, so we take all these sort of, precautions into play when we're interacting with humans, because, humans are really smart, right? They might figure out what the experimenter wants them to do, so we take precautions there, but a lot of the time when doing animal research, so in psychology or biology or what have you, people still don't take this into full consideration, and they'll be engaging in doing different types of animal experiments in a face-to-face environment, right? Sort of assuming that this animal is incapable of, picking up on human cues, which we know is maybe not necessarily the case, given sort of amazing story of clever Hans. All right, so a few notes I have here are some lessons. Right, so reactivity simply refers to any sort of changes in behavior that we might get from a participant or from a subject when someone's being watched. Right, so how your behavior might change if you know that you're being observed, if you know that you're being watched, if you know that you are a participant in a research study. Right, this can take a number of different forms. So the experimenter expectancy effect refers to the phenomenon of when you try to do what the experimenter is expecting you to do, right? Or the experimenter is influencing the outcome of the experiment. So the experimenter's bias is kind of leaking in there. All right, now again, sometimes obviously this could be really intentional, but the vast majority of the time, as was the case in Clever Hans, there's no intentionality here, right? So the experimenter would be very well trying their best, right, and believe that they aren't influencing in any way the outcome of their study or the outcome of whatever it is that they're measuring. Right, but the importance of doing things like double-blind trials, where the experimenter doesn't know, what condition the different people are in the study, is to protect against this type of thing, right? Changing the behavior, changing the outcome of your study based on, sort of your hypothesis going into it, right? Based on little cues that the people might be picking up on. The Hawthorne effect that I have up here is named after this study, so this old 1927 study that was done looking at factory workers, where it found that lo and behold, basically the effects of the study were flawed because the factory workers, once they realized that they were being watched, so I forget the details of the study, but they were looking at sort of factory worker productivity levels. Well, what do you think happens when people discover that they're being watched? What if there's a video camera in your office at work, right, and you knew that your boss could check in on you at any moment? Might that influence your behavior? Well, yeah, duh. Of course it's going to influence your behavior. Right, so the Hawthorne effect in particular is usually used in cases where you increase your productivity, right? You start behaving in a better way because you know that you're being observed, right? You know that you're being watched. The other thing that I have up here in terms of our lessons that maybe learned from the Clever Hans story is the importance of considering alternatives, right? So in the case of Clever Hans, obviously the most accessible, most plausible alternative is that, okay, well, that this is just an elaborate hoax, right? That von Osten was in on it, and it trained this work for a course, and they were just duping everybody. All right, so we rule that out. And on the net, right, so that's the most plausible alternative, so we rule that one out. All right, and then it's, well, we just want to accept this at face value, right? That this horse is super duper intelligent, capable of learning all of these things that, like, most humans aren't even, perhaps capable of learning. What are the other plausible explanations, right? So always be on the lookout for alternative explanations of a phenomenon. All right, so I'm explaining it this way, or I'm reading this study, and the researchers have explained it this way. All right, they think that we can understand it by this, it's explained by this particular theory. What is an alternative explanation for what is going on here? All right, and so that's being sort of a critical skeptic, which is a really good approach to have when it comes to approaching research or approaching science in general. Right, whether you're conducting it, whether you're reading it, right, you're consuming it, in whatever manner that might be. Right, and this doesn't mean not believing anything or assuming everything is garbage or there's some alternative explanation for everything. Right, but be thinking about things carefully and thinking about, okay, can I think of a plausible alternative explanation for this effect that these researchers are presenting me with? Right, and that's a really, really, really important skill to have, an approach to take to understanding science, whether it's presented in a textbook, pops up on your Facebook page, whatever the case may be. Right, so as I said, I don't know how many of these I have up here. Right, we are bombarded with headlines, right? We're bombarded with the results of research studies. Right, and again, this is just to highlight why having a basic understanding of research methods can be really important. All right, knowing how the research was conducted can often give us a clue into the appropriate type of claim that the researcher, that the journalist, or whoever should be making based on that data. All right, so types of causal claims, for example, so infections may cause depression, anything that is a causal claim. Ask yourself, was that an experiment? Right, a true experiment, which we're going to talk about here in a moment, right? Because if it wasn't, if it was a correlational type of study or some other type of study that wasn't following the rigor of a laboratory experiment, then it should not be making any causal claims. All right, so understanding different types of research give us clues into the types of claims that are generally appropriate, how well that research was conducted, and tells us sort of how confident should we be in the results of this. Right? And really, if it's the result of a single study that's been done on absolutely anything, you should be not very confident in anything that is just the result of a single study. All right? Something that has not yet been replicated, not yet been well replicated in different labs by different people. Things that are just, flashy things that make good headlines, right? Good one-liner pieces of information that people can talk about, at the water cooler at work the next day. Take those very, very suspiciously, all right? Do not place all your confidence in that type of research, because science is an ongoing, very slow-moving process. All right, so we talked last class about how psychology is an empirical science, right? So we take the approach that the best way of understanding the mind and behavior and all of these interesting questions that psychologists are interested in asking is through empiricism, right? It's through using the scientific method, right? So this is just really some definitions for what I'm talking about here, all right? Empirical evidence, data that's been collected through the scientific method, all right? Through rigorous, systematic observation. All right, so we can think about, just to sort of get a better understanding of this, or thinking about this a little bit more, to contrast this with different ways. All right, so other ways, apart from gathering empirical evidence and using the scientific method, that we might come to form beliefs about the way things are, the way things work, the way people function, etc. right? So we might believe something because we just feel like that's the way it is, right? We have some gut feeling that that's the right answer, that that's why people think that way, right? That's why your friend behave that way, right? So we come to a lot of judgments and conclusions just based on intuition, based on gut feelings. All right, we might trust an authority figure, right? So we believe that something is true, we believe that something is correct because it's some sort of authority figure tells us that. So the authority figure can come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. It might be a religious authority figure, it might be a governmental authority figure, all right? It might be, so this would be, my parents, I don't know if they do this anymore. My parents used to watch Dr. Oz a lot. My dad would basically believe anything that Dr. Oz told me that blah, 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 right? And I'd be like, oh my God, Dad. Right, so Dr. Oz, right, but these types of people, Dr. Phil can be seen as being authority figures, right? If we just trust something, right, or believe something to be true, not because there's necessarily any science or good data to back that up, but because Dr. Oz said so, right? The great thing about science is that it's a democratic process, right? All that matters is that you're doing science well, and it doesn't matter if you are an authority figure, right? You're some sort of science god versus some new, just getting started researcher, right? Science is supposed to be this nice democratic process. So you might believe something, right? There's many things that we believe just because everybody else around us seems to believe that that's the way it is, right? So through some sort of cultural consensus or acceptance, right? And then finally, obviously, we can use logic, right? It's a sort of formal, logical rules for reasoning about things. And this obviously has a role to play in science as well, right? But these are different than actually going out, making observations, collecting data, right? And using empirical evidence as a way of forming your beliefs, right? Forming your theories about the way the world works. All right, so there's lots of different figures out there. You open any sort of, intro, anything, textbook, you'll have some sort of figure of the scientific method. What's problematic sometimes, I think, with thinking about the scientific method in this sort of diagrammatic way is it misrepresents, right? No one sort of sat down and said, okay, this is the scientific method, and this is how scientists go out and exactly approach the studies that they run, right? Real science isn't a 5th grade science grade project, right? We all know that. This one at least, so I like this one from Wikipedia because it at least presents it as a cyclical process, right? So there's not really a clear start point or end point to this process. And that's one of the things that you'll often find is lacking. You sort of Google scientific method, you'll find some beautiful linear diagram, right, that presents it as if, like, this is all the steps that you take, sort of one by one, and then you get to the end of the day and you publish it and present it to the world, and ta-da, your science is done, which is just foolish, right, and not really the way that science works. Right, so in this one we see science as an ongoing process. Most part of you are perfectly capable of reading through this on your own. What I do want you to do is I want you to take a moment, read through these different steps, right? So I start to make observations, look around, and I have this is going to pop up on Top Hat for you. And what I want you to do is on the image, let me get it up here, it's going to ask you to click on what you think is the most important or fundamental step in the process, all right? So this is purely for participation. There's no real right or wrong answer here. This is just I want to sort of see, do we have some sort of consensus in what people think is being, which one of these is the most fundamental, the most important part of the scientific process, right? So I'm going to give you a couple minutes. Feel free to chat about it with your friends. If you have a disagreement, that's fabulous. You can argue it out. I think it'll give you up to 2 clicks, so if you really can't decide, you can click 2, right? Like limited you to that. So just click somewhere, right? Again, no right or wrong answer here. It's just thinking about this process and what do we think is really the most fundamental part, most important part of the scientific method. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple minutes to say for most, I'm going to give you 30 seconds if you haven't decided or clicked somewhere. All right, well, this is interesting. This might be partly because, so it's still should sort of be open if you still want to click. But I'm going to show you. So what this does, one of the things this does is it provides a heat map. So I can basically see, without looking at numbers, I can, it sort of gives me a heat map of where most people have clicked. And so I wanted to see if there was maybe going to be like overwhelming consensus, like you all thought that one or two particular parts was the most. This is basically what I got. Now, right, so they're all clicked. What looks like to be completely equally as one another, which is maybe interesting in and of itself. I'm lost my notes here. So that's what it looks like for me when I do this little heat map, right? So the red obviously means that that's where most people, where more people have clicked. And so I wanted to see, so part of this might be that the class is so big that it only takes a small percentage of you for that to go like super red. But that's still interesting that we still have, it looks like everybody thinks that every part is just as fundamental and just as important. And that's maybe exactly the way that it should be. Because every stage of this process, let me set my way here. Every stage of this process is critically important. Right? And this whole thing kind of falls apart in a sense if we move any one of these out of the equation, right? So all of these things are super important. I'm going to talk a little bit now about particularly the role of theory. Because the role of theory, maybe if gun to my head I had to pick one, is one that really is of super critical importance, and it's one that a lot of the time, perhaps as students, early on, maybe sort of gets lost in the shuffle, right? We're lost sort of worrying about different types of research methods, data collection, and this type of thing. But if something's not grounded in theory, you're sort of in trouble. So scientific theories, play a number of roles in science and in psychological science, right? So when I'm talking about a theory, basically it's a number, right? So a scientific theory or psychological theory, right, at a very basic level, is something that explains the relationship between two or more variables, right? So it offers a sort of global explanation for a bunch of findings that would otherwise seem sort of disparate or not connected to one another, right? So one of the roles of theory is obviously to explain something, right? So a theory is explanatory, right? It takes this giant mountain of data, right? This giant mountain of evidence that we've collected on something, right? So this might be study after study or decades of research, or whatever it is, depending on the theory we're talking about, right? But the theory is explaining this mountain of research, right? And it's based on this mountain of collected evidence that all seems to lend support for this particular theory. All right? So theories are explanatory. But what's also just as important about a theory is that they're also predictive. All right? So a theory is going to generate hypotheses, right? There's always going to be sort of new hypotheses to test the theory, to test the boundaries of this particular theory, to test whether this theory holds up for people in this culture and people in that culture. There's always going to be new predictions, basically, that can stem from some particular theory, right? So theory is more broad than a hypothesis, right? That's maybe something that also tends to sometimes be a little bit of a place of confusion for students. So a hypothesis is a specific prediction, right, that is based on some larger theory, right, generally. Right, so theories are explanatory, they're also predictive, they serve this generative function as well. All right, some other things that any good theory should be, or that are sort of features of a scientific theory, ones that make scientific theories different from, we use the term theory can be used in a bunch of different ways, right? It's used in a bunch of different ways. When we're talking about scientific theory, it has to be testable, right, using currently available research techniques, right? So the theory isn't scientific if it doesn't actually generate testable hypotheses that we can go out and test. All right, so they have to be testable, has to be falsifiable, right? So that theory has to also be generating particular types of hypotheses, right? Where it's possible that that hypothesis is not going to be supported, that we would find evidence that would say this is incorrect, right? That this hypothesis is false, and then perhaps that would require us to go back and reformulate our theory. Alright, so for something to be falsifiable, that is exactly what it means, the definition I have there, right? It doesn't mean that it's false, right? It doesn't mean that it's wrong. It means it's possible in principle that we would make an observation, right? That we would run an experiment, that we would test this hypothesis, and it wouldn't be supported. Alright, an unfalsifiable hypothesis is things like if I came right here and said that I think that the universe exists inside the thumb of some being, right? I know some crazy hypothesis about like the universe, but it can never be tested because this thing is invisible, or like religious theories, basically, right? They're not scientific theories because they can't be empirically tested, right? So any sort of hypothesis you can generate that's based on religious beliefs, right? Those serve a purpose, certainly, but they aren't scientific for the most part because they don't predict, make falsifiable hypotheses. All right, so testable, falsifiable, and the last thing I have up here is parsimonious. All right, so a good theory, or the best theory, is the one that sort of makes the fewest assumptions. So if we have, so oftentimes in science, you might have competing theories. Right, so we have two different theories that are used to explain the same sort of set of phenomena. All right, the theory that is going to win out, or the theory that's going to be taken as being the better theory, is the one that does the same great job explaining all of this data, right? One with the same amount of explanatory power, but does so in a simpler way. All right, so the simplest explanation wins. All right, so parsimony, this idea that there's this preference out there for simplicity. Oh, and I have this note here, so for an example of an unfalsifiable theory, actually, or a psychological example, would be Freud's psychoanalytic theory. All right, so one of the big problems with Freud's theory, well, there's a couple of issues. We'll talk about Freud in more detail in a later class. All right, one of the problems with the psychoanalytic theory was that it was unfalsifiable. All right, so it was too loosey-goosey in terms of how the therapist, basically, so it was all based on sort of Freud and his interactions with his clients. Right, the problem was that there were no sort of concrete rules, and that everything could sort of be interpreted in a number of different ways. And so you could always come up with sort of an explanation for why, this patient behaved in this way, or why this patient felt this way. Right, there was no way to sort of make it falsifiable. There was no, evidence that Freud or other people using his psychoanalytic approach could encounter that would discredit the theory. All right, so one of the big problems with Freud's theory is unfalsifiable, right, which is why it doesn't exist in its old forms, at least currently. Right, the other problem with Freud's theory is that, the reason that it lasted so long, or that it had such a huge impact, is because it benefited from a lack of having any theoretical competition. So there wasn't any competing theory that did a job, it did as good a job of explaining, sort of what was going on with people, that explained consciousness and all these unconscious desires and things that had no competition. Right? So theoretical competition is really, really important for the advancement of science and our advancement of our understanding of the brain and behavior and the mind, etc. All right, so to give you a few examples of some psychological theories, and then we're going to break it. I'm going to give you a little task to actually do during the break that's going to require you to have a little basic understanding of these theories, so pay attention here. So a couple of examples. So intergroup contact theory. Very old theory that does exist, and obviously modified forms continuing today, all right? And that the very, very basic of this theory, so this is all sort of one-line explanations of what are very complex theories. So intergroup contact theory is the theory that in order to reduce prejudice between different groups, right? So between blacks and whites, right? The theory is that contact with that group, right? So making these people interact with one another, right? So forcing people to interact with members of this outgroup, that would reduce prejudice. Right? This is true and exists under very certain conditions. So there's a number of conditions that have to be in place for this to hold true. Right? So it has to be equal status contact. There has to be sort of cooperation toward mutually shared goals and this type of thing. All right? But at the heart of it is just this idea, right? That positive intergroup contact can reduce prejudice toward different groups. All right? Social comparison theory. Again, stated most simply is the idea that when we want to evaluate ourselves, right, so I want to know how well did I do, in this class, how skilled am I at basketball, and there's no objective measure really available, or even if there is, but we feel like it's sort of not giving us enough information, right? But particularly when objective measures are sort of unavailable, we look to other people and compare our skills, right, or our abilities to other people. And if I'm doing better than that person, then hey, I feel good. I feel like I'm doing pretty good on this task, right? If I'm doing worse than other people, I think, oh, I'm not so good at this task, and maybe I feel bad. Again, depending on a whole bunch of other different things, right? But social comparison theory basically is the idea that we compare ourselves to other people in order to learn more about ourselves and get a sense of how well we're doing on something, right? This is why when you get test results back, what's the first thing you want to know, or the first thing someone will bug me for if I happen to not post it? What was the class average, right? Because you have this objective mark, right? You know sort of objectively how well you did on the test, but you want to know how well did I do compared to everybody else, right? So this is social comparison theory. All right, last thing I have over here, social learning theory. All right, and this is Albert Bandura's theory, which is basically the idea that learning is a cognitive process. So it's not purely this behavioral thing that we can learn through imitation, through modeling, right? That we can learn through other people, right? So that children learn by just seeing other people behave in certain ways. They don't necessarily have to be directly instructed on how to do it, although certainly that can also be the case, right? They don't have to have that behavior reinforced or punished, right? So this was sort of a response to the behaviorist perspective, right? By saying that, hey, people also learn just through imitation, through modeling, this type of thing. All right, so again, very simply, a couple of big theories in psychology, namely social psychology, because I'm totally biased towards social psychology, because that's what I do. All right, so we're going to take a break, but during the break, what I want you to do, I'm going to open up a discussion in Top Hat, where if you come up with a good hypothesis, feel free to enter it in there. Again, you can upvote other people's hypotheses, which I highly recommend you do, because I can't skim through 500 different responses. All right, but I want you to come up, and you can certainly do this in small groups or with a partner, at least one specific research hypothesis that you might develop that's based on one of those three theories that we just went through, right? So what would be an example of a testable research hypothesis based on one of those theories? All right, so think about that over the break. We'll also take our break now, and I'll open that up on Top Hat for you.
My Top Hat account cannot log in because I was externally signed up for professor, and I signed up for student, and it says expired in 5 days, and I click log out and I cannot sign in again.
Professor, okay, so
Like
so it thinks you have a professor account. So why don't you go to sign up and then just try to sign up again?
And it shows that my what's the code?
样的，其实你
It shows that when I type my email, and it says,
Okay, you should be able to just call them if you can find their number, and they'll be able to sort of relog you. Or
That's-
whatever. Yeah, call them. You can call them right now. Call them after class, or this will be your freebie.
so how about the mark?
So if it's not working for today and you get sorted for next week, so this class will just be everyone gets a freebie class, right? So this will just be your freebie class, so don't worry.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
那赶快问。
In a moment, just lost. I don't have time to go through. I'm going to go through some of your research questions or some of your hypotheses later on. For the record, one of them was anonymity makes people irresponsible. You are anonymous to each other. I can adjust that, but for the most part, I've kept you anonymous to each other. And there, you are not anonymous to me. Just FYI. So, I didn't see, most of the part people are putting jokes or their Instagram handles or whatever, and that's fine. But just an FYI, I will at times make you anonymous to each other, just for, in case anyone wants to be anonymous or whatever, that's fine. You are not anonymous to me, just so you are aware. If it is not unclear, it's sometimes unclear to me what you guys see and what I see, so if that's not clear, do keep that in mind for next time, all right? You're not anonymous to me. All right, so if you did actually manage to think about a testable hypothesis that might come from or might be generated by one of those theories that I mentioned previously, again, things to think about. So, is that testable, right? So could you actually go out, right? Is it feasible? Is it something that you obviously as an individual, but that a researcher could feasibly do? Right? Or are you randomly assigning people to live in different parts of the world, right? Or different cities, right? Or just doing something that's obviously unfeasible, right? Or just not possible or practical for whatever reasons, right? Or it's a type of study, well, I could do this if I had $1 million, right, to put toward this research study, right? So when thinking about hypotheses, it's always good to keep in mind, number one, so is it testable, is it practical, is it feasible, etc. And then also, is it an interesting hypothesis? Right now, based on a one-sentence, understanding of a theory, in all likelihood it might be, well, if you have a great hypothesis, someone's maybe gone out and done that already, so obviously you'd want to go out, review the literature, see what we already know, right, what's already sort of well-established knowledge in the field, and then think about, okay, what don't we know? What is the gap there that needs to be filled? And what is an interesting hypothesis that I have about, sort of how these things work, under these particular conditions, or whatever the scenario might be. All right, so one of the things in terms of making, going from a hypothesis, it's usually stated in terms of conceptual variables to thinking about, okay, in practice, what am I actually going to do? What is my experiment actually going to look like? Or what is my study actually going to look like? We need to think a little bit more closely about our variables that we're interested in. Right, so a variable is anything that can vary, right? It's anything that you can think of that can vary within the same individual, that can vary within different individuals, right? So anxiety levels, something that might vary between individuals, right? Or you can think of it at a cultural level, ways that cultures might differ, right? So a variable, anything, right? Characteristic, condition, anything really that you can think of that potentially varies. All right, when we're talking about research, for the most part, we use terms like independent and dependent variables. So just a quick refresher if it's been a while since you've been thinking about this kind of stuff. So an independent variable, right, when we're talking about a true experiment now, an independent variable would be the variable that the researcher is manipulating, right, to see whether it has effects on your dependent variable, your outcome variable, right, the thing that you think is changing based on this thing that you've manipulated, right? So if you came up with a hypothesis having to do with intergroup contact theory, in all likelihood that outcome variable that you have, or your dependent variable, was some sort of measure of prejudice, right? So that
when this is in place, or if I do this thing, the prejudice levels are going to be reduced. All right, so independent, dependent variables. All right, as I said, most of the time we're thinking about research, we're talking about theories, talking about hypotheses, we're thinking about our variables at a conceptual level, on a conceptual level. All right, by this I mean, okay, well, what is prejudice, right? And we think, okay, it's generally like a negative attitude, negative thoughts and feelings toward members of particular social groups, right? So we could write down a conceptual definition of prejudice, right? If I asked you, what's intelligence, right? We could come up with sort of a conceptual definition that we all agree on, right? So it's your ability to be able to sort of learn knowledge and acquire skills and apply this to new settings or something like that, right? So we have conceptual definitions of the variables that we're interested in, right? And we can compare that to our operational definitions. All right, so intelligence, I say intelligence, everybody has a conceptual understanding of what I'm talking about when I say intelligence, all right? And then you want to go out and you want to manipulate, or let's say measure intelligence. Intelligence would likely be a dependent variable or something we're just measuring in a particular research study. All right, so if I want to go out and actually measure intelligence, well, that's a more difficult question, right? I can't just look at someone and know how intelligent that person is, right? So many of the variables that psychologists in particular are interested in are these types of variables where it's not height, it's not time, it's not these very straightforward constructs to measure. It's things that we have to find ways, we have to come up with ways that we hope are valid and reliable ways of actually measuring these variables that we're interested in. All right? So sometimes, as I said, it's very straightforward, right? So if we're looking at, giving children different diets and seeing how high, their height over time, we all know how to measure height, right? That's straightforward, all right? Temperature, response times, weight, right? All of these things, there's clear, obvious operational definitions. For some variables, all right, again, for so many of the things that psychologists are interested in, there's sort of these invisible things that we have to come up with operational definitions, all right? So an operational definition is explaining within the context of this particular study, how am I defining this variable? So what are the procedures? What are the measures, right? Depending on the variable. This will vary somewhat. All right, but what is my operational definition, right? So within the context of the study, how am I defining intelligence, all right? Within the context of this particular experiment, how am I defining happiness? How am I defining anxiety? How am I defining introversion? All right, so I'm going to give you, I'm going to actually open this up on Top Hat. All right, so you will, hold on, let me see how I have this set up for 1 second. All right, what I want you to do is try to think of, so we can all think of, we all know what intelligence is. All right, think of, within the context of a particular experiment, what are the ways that you might go about operationally defining intelligence? All right, so what might be your operational definition for intelligence? All right, so you do need to enter this into Top Hat, all right? So provide an example of an operational definition for intelligence. All right, this can be a single word, it can be in sentence, it's sort of up to you how much information you want to provide here, all right? This one is for points, you have to enter something, all right? So your operational definition for intelligence. So think about how you might do that. Have a little discussion with the people around you, right? See if sort of the thing that came off the top of your head was the same thing that came off the top of the heads of the other people around you. And if not, then think about, well, which one of these different operational definitions do we think is better? Do we think is worse? Are there pros and cons of each? All right, I'm going to give you a couple minutes, right? Enter it into Top Hat. And once you've done that, go ahead and exchange the operational definitions you came up with the people around you. All right, and I think the way I've set this up, I should come up with a word cloud at the end so we can kind of see, what most people have entered.
one more minute. Again, this doesn't have to be more than a word, though it certainly can be if you want it to be. All right, there's no right or wrong answers here. It's just providing what you think might be a good operational definition of intelligence. This is, hold on, let me see, oh my gosh, let me see if I can get this to fit. On our screens, okay, so this is a word cloud of all the answers that everyone provided. So let's take a look. Well, one thing that seems up, so we have intelligence as putting up there. All right, and maybe that was part of the set. My operational definition for intelligence is maybe that's what's going on there. But generally, we should, we can't operationally define intelligence by saying I'm going to measure intelligence. Right. So what we need and what I saw is some things that typically come up. So typically, what we might do. I'm actually surprised that I don't see, and I'm certain it's up there. Is IQ. Right? An IQ test. Is it? Where is it? Oh, it's there. IQ. All right, so that's maybe sort of the go-to, right? How do you measure people's intelligence? Oh, we'll give them some IQ tests, right, to measure their intelligence. All right, so an IQ test might be one way of operationally defining intelligence within the context of your experiment. Is there a question? Or? Okay, let me open it up so you can still enter if you want to. Hold on, it won't let me, show the cloud and allow you to answer at the same time. So just give me a minute to check here and then I'll let you open. So IQ is a go-to, I see sort of mental tests and stuff up there, right, or cognitive tests maybe capturing some of this. Right? GPA might be another way, right? It's another way of operationally defining intelligence, right? So I talk to you, okay, well, what's your GPA, right? But you can all argue, right? There's pros and cons to each of these methods, right? Good things and bad things associated with each of these measures. All right, the point is that one study might be, talking about intelligence, blah, blah, and they've measured intelligence by giving participants a particular IQ test. Right? Another study also talking about intelligence, but they've operationally defined intelligence by looking at students' GPA scores, right? Looking at what their average grade was in high school, right? Looking at their performance of some other measures. So there's lots of different ways that a researcher might go about operationally defining their variables within the context of their study. All right, and one note about, so I emphasize the importance of replication in research, right? If you didn't have a chance to finish entering your response, you can do that now. I should do that for you. And when we talk about replication, there's two broad types of replication we can talk about. So somebody might replicate the results of a particular study using the same operational definitions, right? So the exact same measures and everything that one experimenter did, right? An exact replication will be completely copying that, right? So that's an exact replication. A conceptual replication would be, okay, I'm going to, we're still looking at intelligence, right? This is still one of the key variables I'm looking at in the study, but, I'm going to see if this works. So they did it with GPA. I'm going to now use IQ and see if I can replicate these results, all right? So that would be a conceptual replication, where you're still looking at those same variables, but you're replicating it now using different operational
definitions than the original researcher did. All right. Sorry, my computer is not going to respond to me. Okay, I can't see my screen, but we'll just pretend that that's okay. There we go. All right, oh, so just as another example, right? If I were to ask you what is right, intoxication, right? So maybe I'm interested in intoxication, right? We can think about different operational definitions that a researcher might come up with to look at intoxication. So we might use some sort of physiological measure, right? So the blood alcohol content of our participants, right? So we take a blood sample, measure the blood alcohol content, right? And say, okay, if they're above the legal limit, right, we're going to define, we're going to say that those subjects are intoxicated, right? Those participants are intoxicated, otherwise they're not, right? So we set some sort of physiological measure. We might instead come up with some sort of behavioral measure, right? So they have to walk along a straight line, right? And if they can't do that, then we're going to say, say that they're intoxicated, right? Reciting the alphabet backwards, right? Or all these different things that we might do. So we might come up with some sort of behavioral measure, right? Or we might just use some sort of self-report measure, right? So asking them, hey, do you feel drunk right now, right? Or on a scale from 1 to 7, right? How intoxicated are you? All right, so just a different example of different ways we might go about operationally defining a variable. All right, so this is my slide with sort of a broad strokes overview of different types of research methods in psychology, as well as, of course, these all overlap with other areas as well. All right, so descriptive research, we're going to go through examples of each of these in more detail. When we're talking about descriptive research, generally the type of claim that is going to be able to be made from some sort of descriptive type of research is usually a claim regarding the frequency of some behavior. Right, so maybe we're interested in, people have actually done this, or we all know, you're supposed to wash your hands after you go to the bathroom, right? You actually go out and measure this. You actually sit in a public restroom and observe how many people, thoroughly wash their hands after using the washroom. The few studies, at least that I've come across that have done this, the percentages are way lower than what you would expect, just given sort of social norms. All right, whenever you see sort of a headline or something that is saying, 52% of Canadians support this, right? Or 82% of Americans hate Donald Trump, or whatever the statistic is that you're coming across, that's the result of some sort of usually sort of descriptive statistic, right? It's just describing the results of some research. All right, correlational research looks at the relationship between two, sometimes more variables. All right, so this might lead to claims regarding the association, or the relationship, the correlation between these two things, right? So students who exercise more do better in their classes, right? Something like that would be an example of a correlational study, right? It's talking about the relationship between two variables. Importantly, with these correlational type studies, you can't make any causal claims. All right, so the ability to make causal claims only type of research where it might be appropriate to make a causal claim and say this variable leads to changes in this variable is experimental research. All right, so conducting a true experiment, right, in a controlled setting. Make sure there aren't any other sort of confounds, other things that are systematically varying along with your independent variable. Random assignment, right, we're going to talk about these things in a moment. But this is the type of situation where we can make these causal claims. All right, so we're going to kind of work backwards. Because experimental research is the gold standard or the gold star, right? We want to be able to make these types of causal claims So if we can answer a question using an experimental method, generally that's what psychologists will do, although all of these methods are important and serve a purpose. All right, so experiments, again, key things with an experiment: control, manipulation, random assignment. All right, so control simply means that you have control over the environment, right? So the vast majority of the studies that you will be participating in when you go to participate in these sorts of research studies will be experiments. You're going to go to a lab, you're going to be put in this control, you're going to be put in this little booth sort of by yourself, likely in front of a computer screen, right? You're going to be told very specific information, right? And this is all done, right? The experimenter who's running you through the study might read from a script the instructions because they want to make sure that they're controlling for everything, right? That they know exactly what information and instructions, etc., that you've been exposed to, right, in the particular condition of that experiment that you've been assigned to. All right, so control, big component of experiments, one of the things that makes them so powerful. All right, a true experiment involves manipulating at least one variable. All right, so everything is kept consistent except this specific thing that I am interested in looking at. So I want to know whether students perform better on this task in a hot room versus a cold room, and I make sure that the temperature of that room is the only thing that is changing. Everything else is exactly the same across those different conditions. All right, so manipulation, control, and then random assignment to the different conditions of the study. All right, so if I have my hot room and my cold room, all right, I've manipulated this variable of control first with everything else that I can think of. All right, the problem is that we only have so much control over things. And particularly in psychology, we're studying human beings who can vary on a bajillion different types of traits, characteristics, and experiences, etc., that we can think of. And so what the magic of random assignment does, and I don't use that term, I say magic, it's not magic, but it's almost like magic, is what random assignment does is it allows you basically to control for all of those bajillion things that your participants might differ on that might potentially affect the outcome of your study by making sure that those are consistent throughout your condition, so that not all the smart people end up in condition A and all the dummies end up in condition B, right? So that all the anxious people don't end up in condition A and all the not anxious people end up in condition B, all right? So random assignment means, random assignment means that when participants come to the laboratory, they have an equal chance of being put into all of the conditions of the study, all right? So there's a 50-50 chance that they're going to go with condition A and condition B if we have two conditions in our particular experiment. All right, so back in the day, the researcher might flip a coin or pull, a red or a blue pen out of their pocket, right? There's lots of things you can do. These days, it's usually you've been randomly assigned based on some random number generator, so researchers can go online and it sort of spits out a nice random order for them, so you come in and you're randomly assigned to a particular condition in your study. All right, and this is opposed to the participants themselves being able to choose which condition that they might want to be a part of. Right, so last week we talked about some of this laptop research, right, so taking notes on your laptop, right, versus writing in longhand, right? So we have these two conditions, right? People are listening to the same talk. One condition, they're taking notes by hand. The other condition, they're taking typing notes on their laptop, right? You can imagine what might be problematic if the experimenter just lets participants choose, hey, which condition do you want to be in, right? Well, then participants might choose the condition, hey, I know that for me personally, I type better, on a laptop, versus I take better notes longhand, right? So obvious problems can come about if we were to allow participants to choose which condition they wanted to be in. Right, the same types of problems can come about if we let the experimenter choose, right? The experimenter came in, sort of sized them up and said, you know what, you look smart. I think it's going to help me confirm my hypothesis if I put you in this condition versus that condition. All right, so random assignment makes sure that it takes care of this. We're going to watch a little video explanation that I kind of like on random assignment in a second here. All right, so again, an example of an independent variable and then our dependent variable, so they looked at performance on a test. I mentioned this term confound earlier, right? And this is, confounds are very problematic because they offer up an alternative explanation for your results. So if you conduct your experiment and you look back and you realize, oh my God, I have a confound in my study, what that means is that, let's say you have significant findings, you really want to say, people performed better in the cold room versus in the hot room, right? But then you look back and it turns out that all of your participants in the cold room were run in the afternoon, and all of your participants in the hot room were run in the morning, right? That would mean that time of day is now a confound, right? It's an alternative explanation for any differences that you're seeing between your two conditions. Right, so again, you're manipulating the temperature. Temperature is what you're interested in. All right, you want to know if people perform better in a hot versus cold environment. All right, if you've run a crappy experiment, you haven't thought things through, right, and then you realize that you have this confound, right? So participants are running at a different time of day consistently across the different conditions, right? Again, that's a problem because it offers up this alternative explanation, right? So now you don't know that it was the temperature that caused these differences on this performance test or whatever you have them doing, right? Now someone come along and say, well, no, it might just be that, these are college students and they suck in the morning, right? They don't think well first thing in the morning, right? And they perform better in the afternoon. Right, so confounds are very problematic. The researcher is always on alert to making sure that they don't have any confounds in their study, right? Because it's going to disrupt and completely invalidate the study. So you no longer have what's known as internal validity, or your ability to make these nice causal claims that we want to be able to make at the end of the day. All right, so getting back to random assignment, all right, again, each participant has an equal chance of being assigned to each condition within that particular study. All right, this is, along with manipulation and control, a necessary component of an experiment. So for something to be a true experiment, random assignment has to be a part of that. All right, so participants have to be randomly assigned to the different conditions of the study. All right. A random sample, this is one of those terms that can be sort of easily confused, so I just wanted to talk about it and go over it. All right, so random assignment has to do with, these are your participants, they're showing up in your study, you're putting them in condition A, condition B, condition C, whatever. All right? Random sample has to do with, who are these participants who are showing up in your study in the first place, right? So this is sort of taking things back a step and being like, well, who are these participants? Who are these people? Where are they coming from, right? Who is your sample? All right, so your sample is the people who are showing up in your experiment. So the people that you're collecting data from in your experiment. So a random sample would be that each member in this population that you're interested in has an equal chance of being selected to participate in the study or not. Right? There are certain questions where having a random sample or a representative random sample is really important and necessary. Right? So if I'm trying to predict the results of a national election, well then I want to make sure I'm not just asking U of T undergrads, right? I want to make sure I have a representative sample of the nation, right? So in those sorts of cases, random samples are really important. For the most part, as you might guess, or is clear, will be clear from your psych reading, the vast majority of psychological research has been done not on random samples, but on college students such as yourselves, which offers up some problems that I'm going to talk about in a moment here. All right, but the key thing I want to highlight now is don't get these terms confused. These don't mean the same thing. All right, random assignment and having a random sample are two different things. All right, this I've already said, so I just I'm going to show you, as I said, this little video explanation. The video is clearly from a medical context, but obviously the random assignment, right, this method of random assignment isn't unique to psychology research. It's done in any experimental research.
Research can be done to compare a standard health treatment to something different or new to see what works best. This can be done for medications, medical devices, and even behaviors such as diet and exercise. Such studies are often set up with experimental groups and control groups. Those in the experimental group will get the health treatment being studied. Those in a control group will usually get the standard treatment for the condition. If there is no standard treatment, those in the control group might get a placebo that looks the same but is not intended to have the same effect as the experimental treatment, or they might get nothing at all. If people were able to choose which group they were in, it is possible that the groups would start out being very different from each other before the study even began. For example, if volunteers were given the choice, they might prefer the experimental treatment or the standard treatment based on their family history or their prior experience. Likewise, if researchers were permitted to choose, they might decide to place people into one group or another based on a physical exam or on the person's reported symptoms. The possibility that the groups might be very different from each other before the study even begins is called a selection bias. It is important to prevent selection bias because things like a person's age, lifestyle, genetic risk, and disease progression can have as big an effect on the outcome of research as the health treatment being tested. If it is not prevented, selection bias could ruin a study so that the results were invalid. Good research is designed to reduce or eliminate the risk of selection bias. For this reason, neither a volunteer nor a researcher is allowed to decide who goes into which group. Instead, group assignment is done using something called random assignment. Random assignment is basically like drawing a ticket out of a hat or flipping a coin to choose which group someone will go into. In reality, many studies use a computer-generated random number or a similar method. For some studies, a group of people might be assigned together. For example, if a researcher were comparing two different methods of teaching, all the students in the classroom might stay together. Half of the classrooms in the school might be randomly assigned to get one teaching method, and the other classrooms assigned to get another. If a study is using random assignment to assign people to groups, those who are in the study must be willing to accept whichever group and treatment they are assigned to get. Whatever group a person is assigned to, that person is playing an equally important role to improve science and produce new health innovations.
All right, so random assignment, again, a key component of an experimental study. True in medical fields, true in psychological fields, any type of research, all right? So a critical component, because again, it ensures that at the end of the day, your groups are the same, right? Equal on sort of all these different variables that you can think of, variables that you can't think of, so it doesn't, you don't have any sort of alternative explanation for, you know, why your experimental drug was better than your placebo drug, or whatever the situation might be. All right, so thinking a little bit more about samples, right? So random samples, a lot of psychological research not done on random samples, but done on what are sort of more accurately referred to as convenient samples. So university students, college students at big research universities such as the University of Toronto. Thinking back to the longhand versus laptop note-taking experiments, right, what would you think if I told you that all of the participants in that experiment were senior citizens from, you know, some particular old folks' home somewhere, right? Chances are that would very change, you know, the inferences that you're making from that study, right? It would change the way that you're thinking about those results and their impact on you individually. All right, obviously this isn't the case, right? Their sample wasn't made up of senior citizens. Their sample was made up of college students. So they had Princeton University students in one sample, the UCLA students in the other samples. This is college students at these large American institutions. All right, so again, the sample are the actual participants in your research study. All right, the population is that larger group, right? So your sample is a small portion of this larger population that you want to be able to sort of make assessments of, right? That you want to be able to make generalizations about, right? So all research is, of course, done
on particular samples, but we don't just care about those particular people, right, and assume that the results only apply to those specific people, right, to that particular sample. We want to make inferences about the larger population. Right, as I mentioned, the vast majority, although this is changing, it has been changing over the past few decades, a decade at least, psychological research is done with these convenient samples. All right, and these get known as, this has been dubbed, weird subjects in the research literature. All right, what weird stands for is the vast majority of the subjects are Western, educated, right, and from industrialized, rich, democratic nations. All right, so these weird subjects go down. Weird is an acronym for Western, educated individuals from industrialized, rich, democratic nations. All right, so this is like you guys, right? This is exactly what it's talking about. All right, now the question is, well, what does this mean? How problematic is this? And that's sort of an open question, and there's sort of an ongoing debate about exactly how problematic this is. Now, as I said, there's been a lot of effort made, especially in more recent times, to not just rely on college samples and assume that college students are representative of like all adult humans in the universe, which obviously isn't true, not necessarily true. So there's been a lot of more push for cross-cultural type research. All right, the internet, right, and the ability to conduct studies online has really opened the doors for this. So there's a lot of research even conducted by researchers, here at U of T and other big research universities that have access to a large participant pool like US is still done online. So you want to know, okay, I've shown this effect exists in university students. Does it also exist in a much larger sample of the broader population? All right, so it's a good sort of ongoing issue and a push in psychological research these days. Right? Sometimes, right, for certain research questions or for certain variables, we might think that this is really going to matter, right? And that we wouldn't necessarily expect these results that we see in this particular sample, right, or a college student type sample, to replicate for all humans everywhere. There are other, maybe sort of more basic processes that we might think might be true of everyone everywhere, right? But we shouldn't just make that assumption. We need to go out and empirically test it. Right, so we can think of certain situations where this might be more or less problematic. Now this is just looking at, I was pulling out some, trying to find some headlines. So as you imagine, the longhand versus laptop paper, particularly that one particular paper I talked about from Psych Science, got a lot of media attention, so I was pulling up some of the headlines, and again, some of these are making these causal claims, right? And this was an experiment. So a lot of the research on sort of note-taking and type stuff is based on correlational type studies, where they might ask you, hey, how do you take notes in class, or how often do you find yourself, distracted in class and doing something else on your laptop or on your smartphone, and then ask them, hey, what are your grades like, or what's your GPA? And so they look at relationships between these different variables. This study was a proper, true experiment, and so they're able to make causal claims, right, that it really is the note-taking, right, the typing, particularly doing it verbatim, as we talked about last class, versus writing out your own longhand notes in your own words that are causing these changes. Quick note on quasi-experiments. So quasi-experiments, I mentioned in the reading, they look a lot like experiments. So quasi-experiments are research studies that on the face of it look like experiments. All right, the key thing that makes it a quasi-experiment and not a real experiment is that these experiments are lacking in random assignment. Right, so these are types of research studies that are done where participants already exist in these different conditions. So a lot of the time these experiments will be taking advantage of sort of situations that already exist down the world, right? So factory A uses this particular approach and factory B uses this particular approach, and we're really interested in knowing whether approach A is better than approach B. These groups already exist out there, so awesome. We're going to go take advantage of that. All right, so they use pre-existing conditions, all right? So participants are not randomly assigned to the conditions. These conditions already exist out there in the world, and the experimenter just takes advantage of that in order to be able to test a hypothesis or answer an interesting question that they have. All right, a lot of the time this can be very helpful, right? Or this can help us do things that we wouldn't be able to do, right? So it's really hard to randomly assign factories or factory workers to different types of conditions, right? Sometimes it's just not possible for us to do a true experiment, so quasi-experiments are one alternative that still allow us to get some data, right? To get some information about something when we aren't able to do a true experiment. Right, correlational studies, as I said, are all about, so here we don't have manipulation, right? So here we have one group of participants, and we're just measuring, we might be measuring a whole host of different variables, right? But we're measuring these different variables and looking for relationships between things. So depression and cell phone or computer use amongst teenagers, right? That's the type of question and the type of design that is large, that's probably going to be answered through a correlational type study. All right, academic success, self-esteem. So looking at relationships between these types of things is often done using a correlational type of research design. All right, so here we have a single group of participants, and we're measuring these variables from the same participant. So I have my group of participants, and I ask them, hey, take this self-esteem scale, and tell me how well you're doing in school, right? So report your GPA, fill out the self-esteem measure, and I want to see if there's a relationship between academic success and self-esteem, right? And again, the most important thing to remember and keep in mind about correlational type research is that, again, it tells us interesting things. It tells us about the relationships between particular variables, right? So it's sort of a stepping stone to causality, but you can't make a causal claim based on purely correlational type research. All right, so quick run through different types of correlation. So when the two variables vary together, right? So in these examples that I have here, right, as one variable increases or decreases, the other changes in the same direction. Right, so you have two variables and they're changing in the same direction. One goes up, the other goes up, one goes down, the other goes down. You have a positive correlation. Right, you have a negative correlation, that's the opposite of that. So one goes up, and the other goes down. Right, one goes down, the other goes up. Right, I think I have images of this, some examples. All right, so no correlation means that there's no relationship between whatever x and y here are on our axes. So I'm going to go tiny for this class. All right, so there's no relationship here between these two variables. All right, R is just a statistical measure, it's a Pearson correlation, telling us what is the linear relationship there between these two variables. All right, these ones up top here are examples of positive relationships. So as our value on the x-axis increases, right, value on our y-axis also increases. So this is a beautiful, perfect correlation, the type of thing that you will never, ever see in a psychological research study. All right, other examples of clearly positive correlations and other examples of negative correlations down here. So again, negative would be as x is increasing here, our y variable, values on our y variable are actually decreasing. So they're moving in the opposite direction, right? They're still related to one another, but they're not moving with each other, they're moving at the opposite direction of one another. All right, so why can't we make these causal claims based on this type of study design? And there are two main reasons, two big reasons. So these are known as the directionality problem and the third variable problem, right? And both of these prevent us from making these causal claims. All right, so the directionality problem is this. Well, we don't know what direction that relationship is going in. Right? Now, sometimes, depending on a particular study, we might actually know. So we might know it's impossible for it to be going one way versus another. But in a lot of correlational research, we don't necessarily know whether the changes in A came before the changes in B or vice versa. Right? So we had academic success and self-esteem as an example. Right? And so I might believe, so let's say I'm a researcher, I'm interested in this, and I believe that good grades make people feel better, right? So that if someone has a high GPA, that they have a higher self-esteem, right? That's the grades that are causing changes in the self-esteem, right? I might believe that, that's great. If all I've done is a correlational type study where I've just collected this information and shown that, hey, yes, there's a positive relationship here between self-esteem and happiness or academic success, between self-esteem and academic success. I can't say that it's going this direction, right, or that's a causal claim, because it might very well be going the opposite direction as well in that case, right? Well, it might be that happy people, right, or people with high self-esteem just do better in class, and it's the high self-esteem that actually causes the high grades, right? So that is an example where we might have this directionality problem, right? Is it A that's causing changes in B? Is it B causing changes in A? Right? In all likelihood, both of those things are going on, right? And they're influencing each other. All right, the third variable problem is, well, it's shown that there's a relationship there between A and B, so between academic success and self-esteem. But what might be the case is there's actually a third variable that I haven't looked at that explains both of these things. Right? So maybe it's students from high socioeconomic backgrounds. It's a high socioeconomic background that then causes higher self-esteem, right? And also causes higher academic success, right? So higher GPA or whatever. Right? So there might be a third variable that's actually explaining this relationship that I'm seeing. Right? So the directionality problem and the third variable problem are these two big problems with correlational type studies that generally prevent us from making, or that do prevent us from making these causal claims. Right? This sounds, I know this seems, you probably got this in like a bunch of different classes, and it seems so easy, and I'll even, in my third year, right, classes, or talking to my fourth year research students, you will be amazed how easy it is to slip into thinking about things causally, or to just speaking about things in a causal manner, even though you know that you don't have evidence for that, right? Or that you shouldn't be speaking in these sort of causal terms, right? And this has been ingrained into your head, right? Correlation doesn't equal causation, and you know that, all right? It is really, really easy to slip into thinking about things in causal terms, which is why I emphasize this here, even though you've probably come about it before, right? Especially, when you see headlines and things, right? Journalists and fake news or whatever will often use things where they make a causal claim in the headline, right? So they've read the results of some study, right? Some press release on some experiment that's just been done at some university, right? And they make, right? So maybe the experimenters have been really, really clear about not making any causal claims. Well, what does the media do? Well, making a causal claim sounds a lot sexier, is a lot more exciting and interesting than, hey, there's a relationship between, this and that, right? Boring snooze, right? You're not going to click on that, right? They make these causal claims. So we see causal claims sort of all over the place where there shouldn't necessarily be, all right? So the question to ask yourself, if you come across a headline that either explicitly makes a causal claim or implies causality, right? So it uses language that implies there's a causal relationship, is ask yourself, was this actually based on a true experiment, right? Or did they just go out and measure these things, within this sample of participants, et cetera, right? So it's one of the easiest questions to ask yourself when you see a claim or a causal type claim in a headline. All right, this is just another example of correlations, right? So this is an example. So here I have from one of the stats books I used to use in my stats class. So amount of beer sold has a positive relationship with how hot it is outside, and then coffee sold has a negative relationship with how hot it is outside. All right, in this type of case, we can be pretty sure, well, there's not like a directionality issue, right? I don't think a bunch of people going out and buying coffee is going to change the temperature, of the world, right? So directionality, not a problem here, right? But it's still open to a whole host of third variable type problems. All right, so again, correlational studies obviously have their limits, and it's really, really important to keep these limits in mind, but they also serve a really useful purpose, right? Again, they're still telling us something interesting, all right? If we know that, right, sort of, as I said, it's the first step
in establishing a causal relationship between two things, right? So you might want to know, okay, do these two variables co-vary together out in the real world? Fantastic, I now have a hypothesis, right? I think that it's one that's causing changes in the other, and so now I go back to my lab and I think about, okay, how can I manipulate this? How can I look at this in an experimental context where I'm going to be able to make this sort of causal claim? Right, so very important, even though they have these limits. Oh, I have an example. So going back to all those headlines I showed you at the beginning of class, so this is one of them. Right, so this is one of them. Again, you always get these headlines, right? Study says, right? Science says, right? Like, oh, if science says it, it's gotta be true, right? So the study says it. All right, so this is an example. So people who have sex 4 or more times a week make more money. All right, this is written in a way that implies causality because they use the term make, right? So that if you have more sex per week, you're gonna make more money, right? Obviously, this is a case where a causal claim is not appropriate, right? So this is a different headline from the same study from CBS. So having an active sex life may make you happier, healthier, and wealthier, all right? So we think about this type of thing, right? Supplies again. That having sex is causing these things. If I go back and I forget now the exact details of this particular study, that got a lot of media attention, right? But this is clearly a correlational type study, right? Where they went out and measured a bunch of things, right? How healthy people are, how much money people make, how much sex these people have, all right? And they found positive relationships between these variables. And then the headlines get twisted so that it seems like, hey, if you have more sex, your boss is going to give you a raise, right? Or something that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. All right, so in these cases, it's kind of silly and obvious, and you're like, haha, yeah, like, no one's going to make, that kind of assumption. But again, you'll be you'd be surprised how easily it is to fall into that type of thinking. All right, especially in cases where it's maybe not so clear that this was, that people weren't randomly assigned into conditions where they were having, sex 8 times per week versus sex like once a week, and then looking at this, right? Maybe there's a study out there that did that. All right, I really don't think that this study did do that, but these are the types of questions to ask yourself, right, when you're assessing these types of headlines. All right, so descriptive research. Usually we're talking about, so this can sort of a lot of different things that can fall under the realm of descriptive research. Typically it involves some sort of observation. So going out, observing, or classifying behavior. I have an example here, it's not actually a psych example, but cultural anthropologist Shirley Bryce Heath in the 1970s, she went around and what she did, she basically, her or her research assistants, embedded themselves in the homes of sort of different families of different socioeconomic backgrounds. So they wanted to know what was it about being in a lower socioeconomic household that was hindering children's reading abilities and things like this. Like what was going on in the home that was potentially causing these differences. And so she'd, they'd sit themselves or set up cameras, I don't know what they actually did in the 1970s, to basically situate themselves in the home, observe how the parents are interacting with the children, and lo and behold, it turned out that the children from the higher socioeconomic households, the parents were more likely to include them in conversations. If they were following a recipe, they talk about the recipe with them, more often more likely to read to them and play puzzles and do all these different things. So she was able to make these sort of systematic observations that then told her something about what was going on in these different families that was potentially explaining, these differences that we were seeing from kids in the school system. All right, the social psych example that I have up here is Leon Festinger and colleagues. Back in the 1950s, this was the start of cognitive dissonance theory, which we'll probably come to at the very end of this course. And what they did in this study is so Festinger and Schachter and another psychologist whose name I always forget, embedded themselves in a cult. All right, so the Seekers is the name of this particular cult. They prophesized that, or their leader had prophesized that the end of the world was going to happen this particular date and time, but that they would be saved by the aliens. Hold on, let me make sure I have this right. So Marion Keech was their leader, the name she was given. Right, this is a UFO cult She claimed to get messages from extraterrestrials known as the Guardians, that's right. So the Guardians were these extraterrestrials, right, and that they were going to come and sort of save them before the world ended, etc. So Schachter and his colleagues get wind of this cult, and they want to know what is going to happen when prophecy fails, right? The name of the book that they published about this. What is going to happen when the world doesn't actually end? All right, what are the cult members going to do when this doesn't occur? Right, so this is the beginnings of cognitive dissonance theory. And so they sat there, right? They embedded themselves. This is an example of participant observation because the researchers themselves sort of embedded themselves as being a part of this particular culture, so in this case, this particular cult, right? And made a bunch of observations, so like go to the bathroom and like write notes about what had just happened and what was going on. All right, so making these systematic observations about what was going on in this particular group during this particular time. Right, and it turned out, so what happened, just to end the story, when the world didn't end, the cult leader here, so Marion Keech, said that she got this message from the Guardians, and based on the faith of the people within the cult, they decided to save the world, and that the world wouldn't be destroyed after all, so they could celebrate the fact that they had saved the world from destruction. Anyway, this is an example of participant observation. All right, so this type of work is often done as part of a larger body of research. So as I said, this was done sort of at the beginnings of Festinger developing his ideas of cognitive dissonance theory, sort of how people reconcile sort of inconsistent behaviors and cognitions. I have a question I think I might skip. All of these different research methods are really important. All right, and full cycle psychology, I have a question maybe I'll open it up after class just for fun and answer it. Full cycle psychology is a term that gets referenced in one of the readings for today, so the second module I think that was assigned for today. Right, it refers to this idea of blending, right, the best sort of psychological research will blend findings from making observations out in the real world, right, going to the lab to rigorously test specific hypotheses, right, look at the relationships between these different variables, and then take that back out into sort of the real world and make sure that, there's a sort of consistency between what we're finding in what's obviously the very sort of artificial context of the lab and what people are actually doing out in the real world. Right, so that's this idea of full cycle psychology. What I'm going to turn to now is just a little bit of a discussion about the types of data that psychologists collect, because regardless of the type of research method that is being used, there's also a wide host of different ways of sort of collecting data. So we're at the end of the study, what is the information that we've collected? What is sort of this raw data that we have from our participants? So these different types of data collection methods. All right, so observational methods that I've been mentioning in terms of these descriptive type research, all right, require very systematic coding of behaviors. So it might be, so this is a quick example of looking at, so we have a bunch of observers coding people for particular types of behaviors. So John Gottman, for example, is a very well-known relationships researcher, and he does stuff, him and his wife and their research team have done decades of work where they'll take, say, newlyweds, and they'll bring them into the lab, and they'll sit them down in front of a video camera, and they'll ask them to discuss something that they tend to fight over. So if they're having sort of arguments about money or arguments about the division of labor within their household, whatever sort of a problem for them, they need to have a discussion about it in the lab in front of this video camera. All right, and then what they do is they have observers, highly trained observers, code their behavior for different code the videos for different types of behavior. So this might be an example of something you see there.
right? So obviously you can code for what they're actually saying, right? What's much more difficult to do is coding these nonverbal things. So looking at the face, the voice, the body, right? So are they smiling? Are they sneering, right? Are they deliberately avoiding, right? So they get trained on how to code for all these different types of behaviors, right? So for example, what they've done is they've done these longitudinal studies where they'll follow up with these couples, right? So maybe this is, the first 6 months of their marriage, they're here, they're coding them for these behaviors, and they see who of these couples are still together 10 years, down the line, right? 15 years down the line, and which of these behaviors is sort of successfully predicting the couples that make it, right, and the couples that don't. So they have this huge line of research doing this type of observational coding. All right, so this might be an example of sort of coding in the lab. So these individuals are brought into the lab and have their behavior coded. This can also happen out in the real world, right, sitting at a park and observing children playing with each other and coding their behavior. All right, again, one of the big issues or concerns that comes up with these sorts of observational techniques are these issues that I talked about at the beginning of class, right? Where if people know that they're being observed, they might alter their behavior, right? If the experimenter has a hypothesis, right? So you go out to the playground, Evan, don't go out and stare at children in a playground, because it's creepy, but you don't have a kid. But if you're going out, right, let's say I'm a developmental psychologist and I want to go see children observing at a date, I observe them playing together at a daycare or something. If I have a strong hypothesis about, boys are going to be more aggressive than girls or whatever, how might that leak into my observations, right? Or how do I take steps to make sure that my observers, right, or the people that I've trained to go out and make these observations aren't going to be sort of aware of the hypothesis, right, or that aren't going to let these effects bias the types of observations that they're making. Right, so we mentioned participant observation. I'm sorry, that's the definition that's up there. And again, participant observation is like the psychologist joining the cult. Right, this is actively becoming actually a part of this group. Right, so where the researcher is actively involved in the situation and making these observations, that's participant observation. If we have a naturalistic type of observation, that's when you're out there, you're in a public space and you're unobtrusively coding people's behavior for whatever particular reason, right? This is not actually interfering with people. In all cases, you're trying to show people you aren't even aware that they're being observed, right? But this is you aren't interfering with the environment or with the people that you're observing in any way. Right, so that's the difference between naturalistic and participant observation. Laboratory observation are these types of observations that are made within the context of the laboratory. All right, so an example might be the John Gottman research with the couples and observing their behavior. Another example that I have up here is actually, so this is old work done starting back in the 1950s through basically the sexual revolution, where they actually brought participants into the lab and watched them having sex, as weird as that sounds. But that's exactly what they did, right? So how do we learn about the sexual response? So they developed this 4-stage model of sexual arousal, and this is through the systematic observation of having couples. So they started out, their sample was prostitutes, obviously limits that can be made from that type of sample, so then they just go out and they ask people to volunteer to come into the lab and to have sex and to be recorded or to be observed by Masters and Johnson. And they came up with their 4-stage model of sexual arousal, right? So looked at the different stages of sort of the sexual process. All right, this was hugely impactful work, right? It really helped us understand human sexuality to a level that we simply didn't understand beforehand. Dispelled many misconceptions regarding female sexuality in particular. What are some examples here I have? So, along with Masters, Mrs. Johnson helped dispel notions that today might seem quaint, if not ludicrous. Among them were misconceptions that the size of the male penis determined sexual prowess, and that baldness was a marker of virility. Discovered that females were capable of multiple orgasms and all this type of thing, right? So this is due to systematic laboratory observation. All right, as a quick side note on Masters,
in Johnson, I think there's a show at I'm not seeing the show. Maybe some of you have seen the show, maybe know more about it than I have, although I don't know how many liberties the television show takes. They also published later on a lot of stuff about homosexuality, so comparing heterosexual sex to homosexual sex, found again that there were a lot of sort of more similarities than differences, although they did get into a lot of trouble where they sort of published a book saying that homosexuality could be cured and that it was sort of a learned thing. So very influential, certainly not without criticism, but a very interesting example, obviously, of direct laboratory observation. All right, so a lot of the time we might not just observe people, but actually ask people questions through surveys or interviews. Oh, my computer's about to die somehow. We'll see how far we go. We have a couple more minutes. So ask to provide open information about themselves. So when you're filling out this questionnaire, so the online bonus questionnaire, that's an example of a self-report survey method, right? You're answering these questions. These are going to be closed-ended, probably personality and other type questions, right? But that's an example of a self-report method, which is very well used, but also has a number of limitations. All right, so if people are asking you things that are sensitive questions, right? So your opinions toward, for example, your minority students, right, or international students, you're looking at race relations, especially in the United States or things like this, right? You might get people not being completely honest in their answers, right? So that's the issue of socially desirable responding, right? People are answering in a way that they feel is socially desirable, not necessarily indicating their true attitudes or opinions or judgments on an issue. All right, the better than average effect refers to the issue of basically everybody thinks they're better than average on just about everything, which obviously, by definition, cannot be true, right? So if you're asked you guys to rate, how good a driver are you, or if you have your driver's license, most drivers will indicate that they're better than the average. I would not. But most people would indicate that they're better than the average driver, right, for these types of issues. So that's another issue that comes about with self-report bias. As an example, another sort of historical example, but sticking with the Masters and Johnson type theme, Kinsey was another. So this is done sort of along the same time as Masters and Johnson were doing the direct laboratory research. Albert Kinsey and his colleagues were interviewing thousands and thousands. I think he himself interviewed, I have it in my notes, 7,000 people himself before he died. They talked to about 20,000 people total, asking them questions about their sexual history, right? So when did you lose your virginity? How much do you enjoy sex? Right? Talking to both men and women, homosexuals and heterosexuals, about their sexuality. And again, these findings were sort of revolutionary at the time. They were shocking at the time, especially in terms of it turned out that women actually like sex, right? That most people were actually losing their virginity before they got married, right? Even though that was, again, the 1940s, totally against the cultural norms at the time. All right, one of the big things that Kinsey also did was to suggest that sexual orientation was maybe not this black or white, you're either a homosexual or a heterosexual, but that a scale, right, the sort of continuum might be actually a more accurate way of measuring or looking at people's sexual orientation. This is a quote from me, right? So a 7-point scale comes nearer to showing the many gradations that actually exist. Right, I did my PhD at Indiana University, and there's a Kinsey Institute for Studying Sexual Behavior that exists from Kinsey and continues to do really interesting work on sex research. I'm going to stop there because I think my computer's about to die, and you all want to leave. All right, so we will pick up here, and I'll cover the rest of this stuff in class next time. Thank you, guys. See you next week.
My Wi-Fi has been going crazy.
Oh no.
This whole thing. and I wasn't able to do the second participant quest, like the one where you had to write an answer.
Okay, wait,
My
let's
like
see.
like yeah, my Chrome won't even like open. So
Okay. Which, like the operational
yeah,
definitions one?
it was the operational definitions for intelligence.
Alright. I mean,
And I don't know, like my Wi-Fi's always sketchy in Fun Hall.
I know, well, yeah, see how other people are having trouble. Yeah, if it continues to be a problem, we'll have to come up with a solution. But
Like,
yeah,
I
I mean,
was
it's,
able to answer the first, and then it just went.
okay, yeah, I mean, it's half a point for participation, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to matter at all. But yeah, if you continue to have Wi-Fi problems, let me know.
Okay.
So we can come up with a better solution.
I was also wondering the difference between longitudinal and case studies. Like, if you is a longitudinal just like is the difference just like number of participants? Like, if you find like.
Potentially. So yeah, so a case study is just a particular individual that you're focusing on. It might that might extend over time, so it might be a sort of a type of longitudinal study. But generally, when you sort of hear the term longitudinal study, you're not just thinking about it following a particular person. You're thinking about sort of following a cohort of individuals or checking in on those people, a decade later, or a year later, or 6 months later, or whatever the case is.
And the example you showed in class of the woman who was observing I forget what it was, like the household? She was observing the household.
Oh, the anthropologist. Yeah.
I was wondering if that was an example of like the part.
So it's not really participant observation because they try to not interfere and like not so they wouldn't be she wouldn't herself be like interacting with the child or interacting with the parents.
Okay.
So that, I mean, of course the people there's like a person in their house so that they might be being observed. But they would try their best in that scenario to not interfere with anything that's going on.
What would you consider that?
So I would consider, if I had to choose, I would consider it more of the naturalistic. So like passive observation, not being a part of that group, right? They're not like making themselves a part of the family necessarily. There's also a lot of course, I'll contrast that with a lot of anthropological research where like you might go live with a tribe for a year, right? And there that's participant observation because you're actually like becoming a member of that group. So
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
No problem.